When it comes to our health, most of us love to dabble a bit like it's a hobby. We read another book, we listen to another podcast, we add another supplement to our daily routine. And look, I am guilty of being a dabbler. But here's the truth: you cannot afford to dabble in gut health. A healthy gut isn't just about digestion, it's the foundation of pretty much everything: your mood, your energy, your immunity, and your future health. So today we are speaking with Australia's most passionate gut health advocate. Please welcome back our favourite clinical nutritionist, Lynsey Koch, to help us stop dabbling for good.
Yes.
Lynsey.
Look, this area I'm so passionate about because I just fundamentally, with every cell in my being, know that if you start working on your gut health first, as your first protocol from a health change, you cannot go wrong.
And most of us wouldn't know that we had an issue with our gut, but you do say, oh, I've got a little bit of psoriasis, or I've got a little bit
Hmm.
of eczema, or, I'm tired, or I'm overactive. We don't really ever relate any of those things to starting in the gut.
No, so many people will walk in, and when you ask the question, about digestive health and any symptoms picture that they're presenting, a lot of them will be like, no, I don't have any gut issues because I don't have the traditional reflux, bloating, or any kind of dysregulation of bowel movements. That is not the only sign, as you suggested. Your anxiety levels, your sleeping, your skin, all of that can actually be linked in with your gut health. So I guess maybe where it's been missed in the past is you may not have associated that health symptom with you needing to start with your gut in the first place.
It's also one of those things too, Linz, that as you say, if we're not seeing an outward sign of what's
Yeah.
wrong with our gut, who do we even go to? It's not sort of the thing that your GP really works on, and nor should they. It's one of
Mm.
those specialised areas, and they are general practitioners. But we know about dentists, of course, dermatologists. Who
Mhm.
should we check in with about our gut, and what are they going to ask us, or what are they going to ask us to do?
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, there isn't really anyone, possibly other than, I guess, my industry, which is that sort of naturopathy, clinical nutrition space, that are waving the flags going, hey, guys, this is a very big part of your health that you absolutely cannot ignore because it's so foundational. So it really focuses, obviously, on physiology and digestive function in your nervous system, as well as your nutrition. So I guess, yeah, it's maybe people haven't been supported because it is a little bit more of a niche market to be able to get support.
Mm. And when you are listening to podcasts or reading books about it, I guess the first thing we do is start to cut things out of our diet. Oh, I have that, so perhaps I need to get rid of wheat. Or, oh, I have that, I'm off dairy. Is
Yes.
that always the case, that it's going to relate to something that we're eating? Or is it about, I guess, that instinct and trusting your gut, and
Mhm.
the fact that our gut is a whole microbiome all of its own?
This is what I tell a lot of my clients that walk in. A lot of people will put the blame on the food. I can't eat this food, or I'm not allowed to do this, or I react to this. And I go, look, we know physiologically that can be the case with a small percentage of foods from an immunological perspective. Most of the time, it's the system. It's the system itself, our physiology, that needs to be fixed or addressed. It's not always the food. So, this is the thing: the more permeable your gut barrier is, which means gaps in between these little epithelial cells that form a wall from the external world to the internal world, the more you have these little holes in permeability, the more you will become hypersensitive to foods. So we need to think of this from a whole different perspective because people really do get caught out on restrictive diets. A perfect example of this is a low FODMAP diet. Now, clinically, I use that as a tool in some cases for a very short amount of time. You should never be stuck on a low FODMAP diet because a low FODMAP diet is really reducing fermentable fibers. We
Mm.
know when we look at all of the clinical data that one of the best things that you could ever do for longevity is actually have a high fiber diet. So if you are reacting to fibrous foods, it's pointing you in the direction that maybe your system needs a little bit of TLC.
And some people would then think, okay, well, I'm going to fast for a few days. I'm going to give my system a rest. I'm going to clear it out. I'll just do
Mhm.
water or perhaps juice. But again, that might be relieving your gut from working for a couple of days. Is
Yeah.
that the best way to start? Or should we be doing some sort of genetic testing or blood testing or stool testing if we just
Mhm.
want to get on the front foot of any gut issue? Imagine this: unlocking your genetic blueprint with insights from over 200 healthy aging genes, pinpointing your unique SNPs and potential red flags, understanding what your body needs to thrive and where it may need some extra support. No more guesswork, no more random supplements, one off blood tests, or one size fits all advice. For the first time in history, we have access to the power of genetic testing, something no generation before us has had. This information could change everything. Join our free DNA webinar and you'll get our Stay Well scorecard jam packed with the markers that we want you to track every year, starting now. Friends, know your genes, own your health. Let's learn to thrive together. Visit theagingproject.com to register, and I'll see you there.
Absolutely. I'd say step number one when people have a gut issue, there's a time and a place. We know that intermittent fasting is very beneficial for gut health. You have to pick the right time and the place to do that. But if you've been on this journey and you've already tried to incorporate foods that are pretty widely known to be healthy for your gut, and you're still not seeing any progression, then that is probably the time and place that we look for a little bit more functional diagnostic testing. So the cool thing is, we have this huge array of diving deep into your physiology. One of them, from a gut health perspective, is called a complete microbiome profile. It's where we use this as clinical tools to understand pancreatic function, your immune system regulation of the gut. We can actually test for the permeability. So, that leaky gut, that term that most people are familiar with, we can now test for that using a marker called zonulin plus a couple other ones, and it can be a guaranteed sign of that going on. It allows us also to deep dive into the entire microbiome, which again, we're still developing our research and knowledge on that, but we do know enough now to be able to give you strategic advice on how to fix your gut health.
I just don't think anyone realizes how vital this is. I mean, when you're looking at
Mm.
studies that show that 90% of serotonin, that feel good hormone, is made in the gut. Like that would be trigger enough for me to go, you want this to be functioning at its optimal. If it's going to make me feel good, it might have nothing to do with digestion, except
Yeah.
the fact that I'm not producing enough serotonin and therefore I'm miserable or I'm in the dumps.
Yeah. It's funny, the conversation around anxiety and depression, it's starting to get there, but really no one talks about the fact that 3 out of 4 of your major neurotransmitters are made in the gut with the help of our microbiome, those little bacteria, and transported to the brain. But it's never in the standard conversation. We really need it to be. We need to make a shift on this when it comes to depression. Sometimes we're starting to look at it differently. It's not just black and white of low serotonin, but we know that's a component of it. So, therefore, everyone who has been diagnosed with depression should have a plan put in place to work on your gut health, which is where the serotonin is made. So, I'm really hoping, that this word starts to spread. It is such an important message to get out there.
What are the biggest mistakes, Lynsey, that we're all making when it comes to good gut health?
Yes. I would say top number one is we are all stressed. The thing that when I walk people through all the steps that are required for good digestive health, the overarching umbrella above all is, which nervous system are we in? Are we in a sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight, respond, go, 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 which is AKA modern humans? Or are we in parasympathetic, which is that rest, digest, they call it that reason for a reason, and heal? Because we literally, if you think about the proportion of time that people are feeling burnt out, tired, or stressed, and that compromises your digestive health, year after year after year, that is going to be a very big root cause of your digestive system getting off track. So, step number one is we have to balance out the stress levels. We have so many assaults to our digestive health. We know the obvious ones, food additives and chemicals that we get through our food. But part of it is that we're also living in almost too sanitized of a world, particularly after COVID and all these hand sanitizers, sanitizing everything, kill, 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 kill bacteria. The one thing I want people to realize is there is more bacteria than there is us. So those very same strategies that we use to sanitize our surfaces, to sanitize our hands, they don't just stop there at just the bad bacteria. They have a dramatic effect on our microbiome. It's Shelley, it's crazy. We're at the point now where we are now listing species of bacteria in the microbiome as nearly extinct. So we're having an extinction crisis in the microbiome for people's health because there's just far too many assaults in this area. And just to give you a bit of an insight about how important these 39 trillion plus microbes are,
Have
which
good fun. Good luck naming those, I say.
I know. So 39 trillion, that number is even just like, it's almost like too hard to even
Mm,
conceptualize. And so I tried looking up, I'm like, what's coming close to give people it's more stars than we have ever plotted in the entire universe. Literally is inside in this internal ecosystem.
mm,
So logic would even state if there's over 39 trillion of them, hang on a minute. They probably have a pretty important role in our health, and they absolutely do. So during the human genome, we're all about genetic testing here at the Aging Project, and You Must Try It, which is such a great foundational place to get that information about your health. But when they did this Human Genome Project, they were expecting to find tons of genes, the cancer gene, this gene. And what they actually found was that there was only about 22,000 functional genes in a human being. Now, to give
mhm.
you a little bit of perspective, we have 2 million genes in our system from our microbes. So they come in and they take a huge role when it comes to metabolic processes and absorbing nutrients and creating neurotransmitters. And there's a whole aspect here when it comes to autoimmune conditions. Our microbes communicate to our immune system how it should operate. So if we start to have this extinction situation where good microbes are not even there, no wonder we're starting to even see a rise in autoimmune conditions, which is this immune system that doesn't know how to regulate itself, doesn't know when to switch off. Our microbes actually have a really big role in switching off our immune system. So it's massive.
So we're not germy enough? Is that what you're saying, Linz? We're too clean in our
Yes.
environment, and how
Yeah.
often we sterilize and how often we
Yeah.
wash, and of course,
Yes.
again, low tox what we're washing with.
Yeah. Everything is antibacterial, antimicrobial. And I'm like, we are microbial beings. We're literally washing that off and in out of us. This is not a good thing. I mean, they know this about children. So the rates of children nowadays that have allergies and eczema and issues is just it's on the huge incline. What they find is children that grow up in a rural environment, out in farms with livestock, shoveling poop, doing all the things, there was a significant reduction in autoimmune conditions, inflammatory conditions, eczema, allergies. They're more robust and they're more resilient. And I think that is something that we need to realize. We are decreasing our resilience in our health when we are not thinking about our gut health and our microbiome. So even as something as having a dog and loving and hugging up all on that dog, which that dog brings in all kinds of microbes, trust me, that's actually a good thing because this is how our immune system starts to regulate.
Oh, I can still never go past that scene in Something About Mary when she is literally pashing her dog, and I think that's what's freaked out a lot a lot of us. But who doesn't love a little cuddle with their little fur child? Absolutely,
Yes.
and that's okay. And it's funny, isn't it? You hear those stories about the first child being so clean and perfect and well presented, and every time their dummy drops on the ground, it goes straight into the sterilizer. And by the time you get to the third or the fourth child, you literally pick it off the ground, give it a little suck, and jam it,
You'll be right.
jam it back in.
But
So
it's
we
so
should be
true.
doing more of that and less cleaning. I like the sound of this. All for our gut, all for our gut
Yeah.
health.
it's all within reason. I mean, we're not advocating for people to have just horrible states of their homes. I mean, it's okay to tidy up, and especially around food safety and, raw chicken and those things. That's
Mhm.
common sense. But yeah, there's just far too many assaults. We
Mhm.
just don't realize that there's this hidden internal ecosystem that we're killing them off, probably not consciously. No one's trying to do it on purpose. But unless we have the conversations and we have the awareness about our digestive health, um, it probably just won't be on our radar. And that's what this is about, is like bringing it on the radar.
Getting it on the radar. And again, not relying on those quick fixes, which we often think, are doing our
Mm.
gut good, like having probiotics or
Mhm.
prebiotics or postbiotics. The
Mhm.
difference between those three, they're all essential in our gut health.
Mhm.
But just, having a little swig of something or,
Mhm.
a spoonful of sugar basically isn't going to fix the situation.
No, and that's because, again, I think in the past it might have. A good old probiotic might have been like done, dusted, fixed, no problem. It's just the sheer inundation that we have to try and encapsulate. So I'll give you an example. You're not doing anything wrong by taking a probiotic per se, but this is the issue. It may not be where the problem is. So we take a probiotic for the whole goal to try and get down to the lower part of the intestinal tract and the large intestine and colon to hopefully modulate that environment. But there's a really big but. If that is not the root cause and it's further up, like for example, I talk often how important stomach acid is. It is huge. It is probably, they're all the steps of digestion, from slowing down, being calm, chewing, all those are really important. But what's going to make or break it is if you have adequate levels of stomach acid. So there's definitely some places that we absolutely want to be acidic, and one of them is our stomach, because it sanitizes our food and makes sure that we're safe from foodborne, mold spores and bacteria that are not so great and things like that. The second thing is that if you think of your stomach lumen as like a little chemistry lab, pH is everything. If you're a scientist, the pH of everything is different. We really need to be in a very narrow range of acidic pH for several reasons. It activates a lot of our bile salts and our digestive enzymes that come in from the pancreas and gallbladder to work properly. And those enzymes is actually what breaks down our food from macronutrient, like protein, to micronutrients, like amino acids. So sometimes people will take a probiotic without recognizing that, hang on a minute, something is coming in and compromising my stomach acid, which is that segue into how stressed we are. One of the biggest influences on your stomach acid not working as well as it should is if you're eating when you're stressed. So that's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
so let's pause there for a sec. If you're
Hmm.
getting reflux or
Yes.
burning, any
Yes.
sort of heartburn, whatever it may be, the first thing you do, of course, is have an antacid.
Mm-hmm.
No?
Yeah. Yeah, no. This is going to blow. This is probably going to be people that maybe have not heard it before are going to be like, "What? Wait a minute." And for years, even in our practice, we thought reflux and indigestion was this case of excessive amounts of stomach acid. But look, I always try and, when I think of a problem, I always look through this biological lens, and I ask the question. I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. Since when does the body do something to potentially kill itself?"
Mm.
It doesn't want to do that. Its whole purpose is survival. So that alone goes, hang on, maybe there's something more to this. And what we tend to know in about 95% of the cases of people that have reflux is it's not an excessive amount of stomach acid.
Mhm.
There's often an insufficiency. And so what that sets up is this little stomach lumen has two little sphincters. It's like a little sac that contains food. If pH is wrong, food will sit in there for too long. Now, think of this: a whole bunch of food mixed together with a bunch of gastric juices in a very warm environment. What do you think's going to happen?
You're going to get
Fermentation.
bubbles.
Yes.
Yes.
We're not getting this transit time, this motility that you need through the system at the right pace. And so you are experiencing acids, which of course is a concern because esophageal tissue is not designed for that. But it's not the original stomach acid that's the problem. That's not the evil one here. Like I said,
Mhm.
there's certain cases with structural differences that it can be an issue. But most cases, it's a fact that the food is sitting there for too long and you're getting byproduct of fermentation acids going up there, which is, yeah, we need to address it. But believe it or not, the way we actually address it 9 out of 10 times is actually getting in with more acidity. So that's what I was saying, is someone who's going for a probiotic without addressing the fact
Mhm.
that their stomach acid is off may only get certain traction in their health. So it's not that anyone's doing anything wrong. You just have to have this knowledge base of understanding how important all those variables are: being calm, slowing down, prioritizing your nutrition, of course, chewing your food, doing the breath work before, which we talk about all the time. Get your physiology in this great space to do what it is 100% designed to do. And of course, you can look at some of those other variables eventually, like maybe swap out your cleaning stuff to be not so antibacterial.
It's crazy, isn't it? Because we're learning, and as you say,
Yeah.
there's science backing this up all the time, how holistic an approach to good health
Yeah.
has to be. And we talk a lot here about gut health being a
Mm.
foundational stone of that. Of course, genetics plays a huge part. So
Mm.
let's have a look at that a little bit. Of course, we work in with Fit Genes, and they do food choice testing with
Yep.
us. There's foods that will show up there, or I guess genes that will show up there. That is that going to
Mhm.
mean that we have a greater chance of not great gut health that we need to take care of? And are there genes that we're going to see that means, hey, you're pretty robust, you can eat pretty much anything, and you're going to be fine?
Gut health is a topic that many of our guests, like Dr. Frank Lipman and Catherine Maslin, have mentioned in the past, which is why we have a range of products we've researched over at youmusttryit.com. We encourage you to be proactive about your gut health and let us help you resolve any ongoing issues. You can also book a health coaching appointment over at youmusttryit.com. Just go to health coaching to learn more.
Absolutely. Look, understanding, we always like to have this little diagram that we use in the Aging Project, like a little pyramid of layers of your health. Your, foundational parts are really important. Genetics is our foundational layer. That is our blueprint and our code for our health. So it's important to gather that information. But what that can do is, say you understand your genetics and you have a higher predisposition for celiac disease or lactose intolerance, that means you can stop putting into the body a food that may be a burden for you as an
Mhm.
individual. So it is a perfect pair, understanding the genetics. And then the next step above that, really ultimately, is trying to make sure your digestive health, which is not just about what you eat, because that's 50% of the picture. The other
Mhm.
50% is what you are digesting and what you are absorbing and who's in there from a microbiome perspective to be able to handle it. It's huge.
So you're saying no matter what your genetics say, and again, the best place to start for a healthy gut is a daily practice,
Yeah.
is doing the things like eating more plants, of course,
Yes.
ditching all the ultra processed foods, of course, reducing your stress, which comes
Mhm.
down to being present and taking time for R&R and meditation and exercise, all those
Mhm.
sort of things, prioritizing sleep. You wouldn't think that that would relate to gut health, but we know now that it absolutely 100% does. And then, of course, this is my big question: drinking water. And I've heard some things lately that perhaps we're drinking too much water and we're flooding our systems.
Mhm.
Um, is still 8 glasses of water the absolute go-to for good gut health and good health overall? Or are we drinking too much and washing all the good stuff through too fast?
Well, you could get me down the rabbit hole of our drinking water. It's probably a whole podcast in itself. The reality, it all depends on the water. If we are, I remember going to New Zealand on the root burn track where we hiked for 5 hours up to this like picturesque, like glacial rivers, and we literally could take our water bottle and drink it straight away. That water is filled with minerals the way nature has designed it. The reality is because we live in housing, and they have to sanitize their water. So they have to add chlorine. I've just found out recently up in my area, they're adding a new chemical called chloramine to the water as well, which is chlorine and ammonia. And of course, we know there is fluoride and other things. Now, they're not evil. They're having to sanitize our water. But the downstream effect of that is yes, you potentially could be having a significant effect on not only mineral balance because the minerals aren't in there, but also I would say your microbiome, because what do we use chlorine for the most? Well, if you think chlorine, where do you think you use it the most?
Well, I'm killing every germ out there, aren't I?
Yeah, and your pool, right?
Mm.
So you put chlorine in a pool so that your pool doesn't grow a bunch of bacteria, right? We're
Mm.
drinking chlorine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just one of those things that we go, wait a minute, I'm a big advocate for just you will never waste any money investing in a water filtration. I mean, I have my whole house filtered. You don't even have to go to that extent. Filter your water. But
Mm-hmm.
yes, it depends on the water. We could be potentially knocking balance out. And that's the thing is the body loves balance and it loves consistency. So we just have to
Mm-hmm.
look at ways that we can do that at the best of our ability.
Okay, so we've got to be really seriously proactive about looking after our gut health.
Mhm.
And then when you have or you feel like you've, I guess, put all those little things into place that we can do, and you still
Yeah.
feel a
Yeah.
little bit unwell, or as we do on our magic chart, you're not thriving, you're just
Mm.
surviving, that's when you can go down the route of some nutrition testing, etc.
Absolutely. You have to start with the foundations. Like there is no point, jumping to testing and spending a lot of money if you know you're not eating enough fiber. Because fiber is how we foster a diverse and healthy microbiome. So again, I use this analogy a lot, you have to walk before you run. So if you have digestive ailments, I would start with your nervous system and balance out stress. And I would look at your food and nutrition as your first two protocol. And if you're already doing that, that's when you start to look a little bit deeper. And then if you still, like I said, haven't gotten where you want to be, that's probably the time that you need to deep dive in and do some functional testing. Just to get that raw data of exactly what's going on in there. Another one that we use is food antigen testing, which in the past received criticism, and I believe it was rightly so, because all they were testing was what we call IgG antibodies in the blood, which is very much tied into sensitivity. So people were getting these really exhaustive lists of foods that they thought were allergies, where they were just sensitivities tied into that permeability of the gut. And they were eliminating a huge amount of food. That is not the purpose of a food antigen test. A food antigen test, if it's a good one, which is the one that we use, that you must try it, that has to get sent overseas to get analyzed. We look at IgE, complement molecules, IgG. We look at all these nuances to try and make sure. The goal is to try and reduce as little amount of foods as possible, but remove the foods that are causing the most inflammatory burden in your body. And so that's another great test that we recommend to people. If you think you're reacting to foods, yeah, it may not all be the food, it may be the
Mm.
system, but some of them might be the foods, so we can identify those as well.
You can tell how incredibly passionate you are about this. So much so that you have come up with your own gut food that's going to help everybody's guts, left, right, and centre. It's called Gut Food, which I think is such a beautiful name for exactly what it does. Tell us a little bit about the product and why you invented it and why these ingredients are particularly helpful for everybody.
Yeah, well, look, I'm into now like 19 years of clinical practice. And in my early years, if someone came in for, cardiovascular issues and cholesterol, or whether it was diabetes, I probably would have gone in my, fresh out of training, I would have gone straight into trying to, fix that area.
Mhm.
And then as you get more wise and you get the experience, I was starting to go, some people get traction, some people don't. But the minute I made a shift, of always pretty much 95% of the time making someone do work on their gut health, their digestion and absorption. Whew, some massive changes, massive changes. So part of that came, there's only one of me. My way of leveraging and trying to get people a really great place to start when improving their health was to develop, obviously, Nourish Blends gut food. And the one thing I do love about it, it is all food. It is something that this beautiful earth makes everything we need. And I've just strategically, clinically pulled together ingredients that I want to try and work on soothing the epithelial cells. There's proteolytic enzymes in there for digestion. There's prebiotic fibers and polyphenols for the microbiome. So it's very clinically designed to just care for so many aspects of your digestive health.
So many of us are going to be going, but what does it taste like, Lynsey? And how
Yes.
often do I have to take it? And I can happily say that gut food, you can disguise it in many, many ways.
Yes, yeah. I tried because it's very neutral. It's like I said, there's zero flavors, sugar additives. There's nothing. I promise you, there's nothing in there. It's very neutral. It's very earthy, and so you can have it in a smoothie. You can mix it into whatever alternative milk or milk that you're using at the time. People just put it in water. You can bake with it. I put it in muesli bars. I put it in everything. So because it is food, I really want people to see it as a food. But the one thing we've been surprised at is this, by now, years down the track, I've gotten so many people writing in the changes that I can confidently say it does work.
Absolutely, it does. And as you say, in your clinic, you see the impact and you see
Yeah,
the results every
yeah,
day.
yeah, 100%. We just recently went down the line of the nerdy scientist in me must gather data. so I loved all the testimonials that we got on. That's beautiful. And it just warms your heart when you read people getting a shift in their health. But I thought to myself, there are a lot of gut health products and some of them are great too. But I wanted to go, okay, how do I test to see if this is working? And so we've just completed a mini clinical trial with a small cohort of people that had a range of digestive health conditions. And I put them through a very sort of structured schedule of slowly increasing fiber, because that's what you want to do. You never want to go hell for leather into fiber and don't have a system that can handle it. You have to slowly build things up. But we just got the last person filling out their last clinical form, and we're sitting at a 93.3% resolution of their top digestive health symptom. So I just about fell off my chair because I was like, oh my gosh.
I knew it. I knew it.
Well, I didn't know it in the beginning, to be honest. This beautiful formula came, and we've talked about it in a different podcast. It came just simply from a lady walking into the health food store needing something, and I just pieced together the OG formula, the original formula, which I used to write on a piece of paper and give to people, and then it has just evolved into this beautiful thing, which is where it is at now. So yeah, I feel very blessed. I didn't know it worked in the beginning, but now I do.
No, well, we're the blessed ones because you've done all the legwork for us. So,
Yeah.
to summarize gut health, you
Mm-hmm.
need to know that poor gut health contributes to anxiety and depression. Poor gut health contributes to digestive problems and bloating. Poor
Mm-hmm.
gut health contributes to autoimmune disease and arthritis. Poor gut health contributes to skin issues. It contributes to weight struggles. Your gut is the foundation of your
Mm-hmm.
health. So let's get this right. Lynsey, one last tip. If we're to do one thing for our gut today, what would
Mm-hmm.
you start with?
You have to eat a diverse range of foods. Each particular bacteria that's in there is designed to metabolize a certain food. But it's kind of like that movie, if you build it, they will come. If you don't put the food in the system, those particular microbes, which have huge benefits for you, just will not be there. So, step number one is try and branch out and be a little bit more adventurous with some of your recipes. I know Friday night tends to be like spaghetti night, Saturday night tends to be pizza night. Once a week, try a new recipe. And that's my one tip, is just diversity, particularly in those beautiful plant-based foods. Get in as many as you can.
Extraordinary. A great place to start. And then tune into all our other podcasts and you will learn so much more about gut health, because we do seem to circle back on it, don't we? It doesn't matter whether we're talking to functional dentists or people about arthritis and osteo issues. It all comes back to gut health. It's a great place to start. Thank you so much, Linz. We'll catch up again soon.
See you later.
As always, the Aging Project podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. Always seek medical advice from a qualified practitioner.